never knew how to tell you.
I would be able to talk about my life.
I ever loved a vodka.
I have two moms. Do you want me to say it out loud?
It's weird for me to try and remember when I stopped being able to forget about the fact that I am not comfortable in women's bathing suits, because I swam competitively for almost 10 years, and for a lot of that time I really didn't think about it. I knew that I wanted to be in the water and that I wanted to be swimming competitively, and I was very into the whole scene of being on the swim team. It was after I got to college and I finally heard someone mention being transgendered, which I had never heard of at all until I was 18. I'd never even heard that term, and started thinking more about myself and my childhood and kind of putting pieces together. And then eventually, because I think it was really the last thing that I put together, was my involvement on a women's swim team, and the whole idea of going into a women's locker room every single day, looking and really noticing the sign on the door for the first time, because it really did feel like the first time, and kind of questioning, why I was going into that locker room instead of the one right next door, which in a lot of ways seemed to make more sense to me. And then actually going into the locker room with all these other women, at the time was the way I was still thinking about it, because I wasn't quite there yet, and putting on a bathing suit every day. And not only putting on a bathing suit and feeling uncomfortable in it, just in the sense that it wasn't what I was supposed to be putting on my body. That suit doesn't fit me. But then going out onto the pool deck and knowing that everyone else, people in the stands, were looking down at at our team and at me, and assuming that it was a group of young women on a women's swim team at a women's college, and knowing that there was not a single person up there who was questioning any of our genders, even mine, and it started to make me feel pretty crazy. And I guess the reason that I was able to put up with it for so long was that it's not as if I was the only person who was uncomfortable in a bathing suit. So there are lots of people who aren't comfortable with their bodies for lots of different reasons, and I would hear them talk about it all the time in the locker room, that they thought they were too fat, or their boobs didn't fit in their suit, etc., etc., and knowing that in comparison to them, that I have, what is thought of to be as a nice body. And so I felt as if I couldn't feel bad about putting on a bathing suit, because to everyone else, looked good in it. It's never been as though I am ashamed of my body, or that I wish I had a different percentage of body fat, or things like that. It's just that it's really hard to explain, even now as I'm waiting to get surgery, because for me, I feel like I'm a very lucky person for a lot of different reasons, but also that I have a body that I'm very happy with. And even after I started transitioning, even after I started going by Calvin and using male pronouns, I continued swimming and was okay for probably about another half of the season. I was open about being a transgender person on a sports team. And a lot of people would ask me, but it's not just a sports team, it's a swim team. You are in a bathing suit. Like that is, a lot of transgender people's nightmare, and that's, but it took me a really long time to actually get to the point where I just couldn't do it anymore, where I just put it on and couldn't convince myself that I didn't look extremely feminine in that bathing suit, and that no matter how you look at it, I still had breasts, and I still have breasts, and if no one else was watching, and I could probably still put it on and go for a swim. Really, the thing that started to get to me was going to swim meets and thinking about the people in the stands looking at me, and thinking about me as a woman on a women's swim team, and also the people on the team started to tell me that they couldn't. When I finally told them I really don't want to use female pronouns at all anymore, they told me that they couldn't when I was in a bathing suit. They said they could do it when I was outside of the pool. They really had no trouble with it, but it was really hard for them when I was actually in a women's swimming suit and on the pool deck. They just couldn't do it. And I think that was it. I started having panic attacks, towards the middle of practice, once I ran out of happy things to think about, and once I, I really just reached a point towards the end where I was panicking all the time. And it wasn't even just in the water, it was all day. And so being in the water was no exception, and it actually made it worse. I would spend my whole day in this weird state of being partially excited and partially terrified to go to swim practice, and for a lot of different reasons. I would get afraid of the actual physical exertion, of not being fast enough, and lots of things like that, but then also just going into the locker room and putting on the bathing suit, and it all kind of wrapped up into one, and I started having panic attacks before I even got in the water. And that's when I knew that I couldn't do it anymore, because I couldn't even just enjoy swimming anymore. I couldn't just enjoy the feel of the water and getting out of breath and all those things. It was really just terrible for me in every way until everything really just fell apart, and I finally admitted to myself that wasn't something that I could do if I wanted to be sane. It basically came down to either I have one more swim season and probably, I don't know what it would have taken for me to actually complete another swim season. Probably a lot of tranquilizers or something. Because I was hysterical at every swim practice for the end of my junior year, sobbing hysterically out on the deck, and I never knew why. And my coach would ask me over and over again, "What is wrong? What can I do for you? Do you need water? Do you need something to eat?" And I just didn't know. I would just be sobbing and sobbing and sobbing, and I couldn't stop losing weight. I wasn't even swimming that well. It was a very common sight to see Calvin sobbing on the side of the swimming pool every day for the end of my swimming career. And it either came down to beginning my transition or torturing myself for another year and possibly not even making it through the year. I don't know if I either would not have graduated because I would have dropped out, or I probably would have hurt myself. So definitely right before I started therapy and actively transitioning, I just every day would convince myself. The way that I guess I convinced myself to get in the pool and work out was that I would tell myself either that it was the last day, that I was going to do this. If I just got through one more day, then I could stop. I was just gonna finish one more workout and then I would stop, and I would just fantasize about just getting out of the pool and just leaving and clearing all my stuff out of my locker and just leaving. Like I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to think about it. It was all I thought about. I just didn't want to think about it anymore. And I didn't even want to think about the people I would be hurting or anything like that. I just wanted to save myself. I wanted to just leave, and I wanted to burn everything. Anything that reminded me of swimming. I thought maybe I could just remove it from my life. If I could just do that, maybe then I would be sane. Because I kind of convinced myself that it was actually swimming that was driving me insane. If I didn't have to be in a bathing suit anymore, I didn't have to go in that locker room anymore, maybe that would just solve everything. Maybe that was what was driving me crazy. Maybe it wasn't even that I had a gender problem or anything like that. Maybe it was just swimming. So if I just stopped, then I would feel better. So I either had to decide between continuing swimming or starting my transition and hormone treatment. And I had to tell them all that. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Even after I got kicked off, I felt like I needed to try and tell them why I had been so distant and why I was so upset all the time, because they were my best friends, and my coach was worried about me, and I felt like I needed to explain to them that the reason was that I needed to start transitioning, and I was driving myself crazy there, and they didn't want to hear it. They still won't talk to me because of how things ended, because I got kicked off. They won't talk to me at all. My coach will talk to me, but he's very uncomfortable about the whole situation. He wants me to be happy, but he wanted me to swim. In the end, he would have preferred if I continued swimming and didn't transition.